Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in today. Super excited to get started on this stream. I really want y'all to check in at this link. It's on the screen and also it is in the chat. So whenever y'all get the time, hopefully now, make sure that y'all are able to check in at that link. It's really, really important. Audio and video check. Can you not hear me? I'm not really sure if that means like do a check or if that means like I can't hear you or see you. 404 not found, please let me know what that means. Yay, perfect. You can see and hear me, wonderful. I'm gonna start this for one more time. Make sure that y'all check in at this link. You get some super cool points, get a lot of bragging rights with your friends if you're able to check in at this link and get some points. And also it helps us see how many people are coming to these streams and we can see if they're useful or not. So if you find these streams super useful, please make sure you check in. It gives us a lot of super important data. So with that in mind, I just wanted to check in and see if anyone wants to share where they're from, if they're super excited for the stream, what they're super excited about, and hopefully I'll get to that. I am super excited about running this stream because I love APIs, and it's really, really important to get to know what APIs are, how to use them, and the very, very bare bone basics. So I'm super excited to be running this stream. I'm streaming from Texas, if anybody's from Texas, that's in the United States. But I think I'll go ahead and get started just so that I can get to the meat of the content. And if anyone wants to share anything about where they're from or something they're excited about, feel free to put that in the chat and I'll pin you eventually. So let's go ahead and get started. If y'all need the check-in link, it's going to be in the chat. I'm just going to take it down for now so we can get started on our content. But let's go ahead and get started. Super excited for this. Okay, so just in case y'all don't know me yet, my name is Varshini. I'm a coach at Major League Hacking, and I've moved 13 times throughout my life. This is going to be my second technical stream. My first was yesterday. So I'm a pretty new coach, and I'm pretty new to streaming, so hopefully y'all enjoy the stream. Yeah, that's me, and if any of y'all want to introduce yourself, definitely feel free to do so. Hi, Lulu. I think it's supposed to be LOL, is from Singapore. Hello. Mutation says hi as well. Thank y'all for saying hi, checking in. Appreciate that. So I kind of just wanted to, actually, before I do this, I wanted to do a quick poll, just get y'all a little bit engaged and to get everybody interested really quick. So I want y'all to respond in the chat with 1, 2, or 3. So if you've heard of the term API before, respond with a 1. If you've actually used an API in code before, respond with a 2. And if you've ever built something using a public API from scratch, respond with a 3. And I'm going to be waiting for all those responses. I personally am a 3. I've gone to a couple of hackathons and used APIs. I'd love to see y'all's responses. I'll pin you. And, if you have a super interesting experience with an API, I'd love to hear about it. 404 not found says, what's an API? Oh, don't worry at all. So then I'm going to put you in the file of a 1. Even if you haven't heard an API before, you can definitely put yourself as a 1. Don't worry at all. That's what this session is for. I want y'all to be super comfortable with what an API is and understanding the basics of an API by the end of this session. LOL, Lulol says 1. Super great. Glad you've heard the term before. Joro Stud says 3. Very cool. That's super cool that you've, built something using a public API from scratch. If you want to talk about your experience, definitely feel free to do so in the chat. We can also talk a little bit more later as well after the stream. Dinesh says, hello. Oh, and Mutation says 3. Yes, very cool. Super glad y'all have been working super hard using these APIs. I'm very glad you're here to start this basic intro session. So I'll wait for maybe like 1 or 2 more minutes and see if anybody else has any more responses. But if not, I can go ahead and get started with our actual stream and get into learning some more about APIs. Jero says they just used the Viros to Total API app. Very cool. Very cool. Super glad to hear that y'all are getting into the use of APIs. It is a very cool concept, and that is super, super fun. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. If anybody else has any responses, don't worry. I'll still interact with you, so no worries. Definitely feel free to keep typing it in the chat. But I wanted to start with a question. So this isn't a question for y'all. This is more like a rhetorical question about how the modern web works. So think about just like your day-to-day experience. So you're opening up your phone, you're opening up Spotify, or you're opening up Apple Music or something like that. Whatever you listen to your music with, your favorite playlist loads, all your album, art, everything. Like, that's super cool. Everything that you personally pick loads almost immediately once you click on your app. Or imagine, it's summertime. A lot of people are going on vacation. So imagine you're somewhere like Japan, and the weather app still is able to tell you about what the weather looks like in Texas, for example, where you're where you're from. So that's super, super cool. And the modern web is very, very cool, but it's not actually magical. Might seem so, if you don't know the technology layers behind it, but it's definitely a solid understanding that it's built on. And it's built on layers and layers of invisible systems that are basically talking to each other to get that information that you need. And that exactly is what APIs are. Almost all of that communication between these invisible layers is happening through an API. So I want to hear something really quick. What is an app that y'all feel is super seamless and connected, like it knows exactly what you want? I think Spotify and Google Maps or something like that. If y'all agree, definitely let me know in the chat. But if there's any other apps that you feel like, wow, you just open it and almost immediately they know what you're talking about, let me know, because I think that's super cool. That seamlessness, that it's almost magical where that output happens immediately. 404 Not Found says the web isn't built on a bunch of tiny interims and manually interpreting stuff. I know. Crazy to believe, but actually it's not. It's a bunch of different invisible layers communicating with each other. So I know, unfortunately, I hope I didn't shatter your vision of the internet a little bit too much. Interworms are very cool, but hello, Musheng. Nice to see you here. And yes, 404 again says Spotify is definitely very well developed, even if it's an Electron. Yeah, I think that it's a very, very cool app, especially with their new DJ feature. I guess it's not new, but the DJ AI feature, and a lot of different new AI tools that they're building where I actually just saw one yesterday where it's you can put in what mood you want and it comes up with your playlist. So you can put oh, I'm in I want a happy pop mood, and it comes up with a playlist for you. So that is super cool. Thank y'all for your interaction. Really appreciate that. So what you're feeling there, that seamlessness in Spotify and other apps, that's often APIs that are doing their jobs really, really well behind the scenes. So let's be honest. Also, I don't know if you can see that. I tried to design the slide a little bit pretty, and I think it just ended up becoming very light scale and not very accessible. So sorry about that. But let's be honest, no developer is building like a weather forecast algorithm from scratch, right? They all have these built-in we like whatever exists, we're building on top of that. Nobody's really building like map algorithms and weather algorithms from scratch. So this is kind of the big shift in modern software that we're experiencing. So instead of writing a super huge system by yourself, you're pulling in existing services that people have already built through APIs. So the reason why I have Legos here is because it's kind of like building with Legos. So if you think about every single tool that we use day-to-day life, so like Google Maps, maybe payments through like apps like Stripe, movie databases, things like that, think about them like Lego bricks. The API is kind of like the little circle on top that lets you connect your brick to your own app. So each Lego brick has these little circle things that you can use to connect each Lego brick to each other. So without APIs, each team that's trying to build a new app would basically be reinventing the wheel. But with APIs, we can go from an idea to an app super, super fast. And yes, very, very fun. The Django for super nice headless server, yes. Okay, you also can't see this. I'm not really sure why it's like doing that. That's not great, but that's okay. So you can kind of still see the kitchen image. And so in the API world, the kitchen is kind of like your server. So it's got all the data, the weather info, movie listings, user records, anything like that. It's kind of like, I like to call it like a truth machine. It knows how to do exactly what you want, but it doesn't really interact with the customers directly, just like a kitchen. A kitchen knows what you want, knows how to make it, but it's not interacting with the customers directly. You, the customer, you don't really know how the kitchen operates. You just kind of see the food brought to your table. You don't really know the recipes. Honestly, you don't really care. You kind of just want your burger or whatever food you're eating. So this separation that I'm talking about, like between the customer and the kitchen, is kind of how the client and the server interact within the API world. So this is kind of like the source of truth. So that's exactly what the kitchen is. That's how they get you your interactions together. And also just like to kind of take a step back about like what this restaurant analogy is. Like I was trying to make it something fun, and I think people like food a lot and restaurants a lot. So definitely very interesting. So you sit down, you open up a menu, and you're just kind of like waiting for the food, and then the food shows up. So that's kind of like how APIs work as well. So if you think of yourself as an app or the customer, you want something, and the kitchen is working as the server that gets you what you want. So this is kind of the next step in our process where the waiter acts as a super, super key player. The waiter speaks both languages, your language as the customer, the person wanting the food, and the language of the kitchen. So if you say something like, oh, like I'd like veggie pasta or something like that, then they can translate that into exactly what the chef wants. So like ingredients, how to cook it, things like that. And then they bring the food back to you in a way like that makes sense to you, like a plate, like pasta, things that you recognize and that you are familiar with. So that's the exact same way an API receives your request, translates it for the server, gets that data, and then sends it back to you in a clean format that you know how to parse through and how to understand. So the waiter is kind of like your messenger, similar to how an API goes back and forth. So if you've ever tried to build a site or an app that's connected to data that you didn't own, so for example, if you try to build a project that used Spotify or use the weather app, so like a Spotify API or weather API, in every single one of those cases, the API itself is playing the role of the waiter for you. So you don't have to understand the data, and the chef doesn't have to understand like exactly what your order is and how to get that. That's what the waiter does, and that's exactly what those APIs are doing for you. So away from the analogy, that was just kind of like a fun little intro. But specifically what the API is, the waiter is the API. It sits in between the client and the server, and it fosters communication between both. So that's why APIs are so, so powerful, because the customer doesn't need to know how the kitchen works. You don't need to know how the backend works. Similarly, the server doesn't care who the customer is as long as the request follows the rules. So this kind of separation of different concerns that people are having is one of the reasons why software can be made super, super quickly because of tools like APIs. So zooming specifically in on what an API is, kind of backing away from the analogy and more about the API. So let's break down like what an API is. I'm sure you've heard like API everywhere, but you don't really know what it means. So breaking it down, an API is an application programming interface. So if we break down each word, application is just any software. So it could be any app, service, or system. If we're using our same platforms, it's kind of like Spotify. Then you have programming. So we're talking about doing any of this via code. That's basically what programming is. If any of y'all have ever coded anything or anything like that, that is programming behind a computer with some code. And finally, the interface. It's a shared boundary or a contract where two systems are able to interact. So now that you have all three of those terms, if we put them together, an API is basically a bridge, you can think about it like that lets two systems communicate with each other. The best part is once you understand the structure of just one API, you can apply that to thousands because they're all built upon the same basis. And very fun, Musheng says that I also think our body is a massive API with the brain as the engine, nerves as the API, and the organs are their services. Yes, that's a really good analogy. I'm not sure why I didn't think of that. It's really smart. But yeah, that's also a really great analogy because, your brain works as the engine, your nerves communicate between your brain and your organs, and then the organs are the services. So also a very great analogy. Thank you for that. So yeah, that's basically just what an API is. And now we can think about an API kind of as a contract. So again, going back to food, because everybody loves food. Now we can focus in on like drinks. So if you imagine that you're ordering maybe like a coffee or, matcha is a really big trend around this time. So imagine you're ordering a coffee or a matcha at a cafe. So the barista is expecting you to place your order super, super clearly. Like, how they have the specific order. They're like, I want like a large, like coffee with whole milk or something like that. Yeah, Juro says boba. Sure, we can do boba too. But even when you're ordering boba, you got to do like, I want like a large brown sugar milk tea with like tapioca pearls, like 75% sugar. There's specifications about how the barista wants you to order. You don't just like randomly shout out words or ask for something like, I just want a boba. You know what I mean? So it's always very, very interesting the way that coffee shops work, because that's kind of how the contracts with API work. You basically have a contract in like very, very hyphenated air quotes, which is an agreed upon way of ordering. So you don't just like kind of just go up to a barista and say coffee and leave, or like iced and leave. You have to give them specific instructions so they know exactly what you want. An API works super, super similarly. It expects requests in a very particular format, and it kind of promises to respond in a predictable way that you can expect and that you can understand. So this is a super important component of coding because it removes any confusion. If this so-called contract changes, then both sides, so the customer and the client, have to update their expectations so that they can both understand each other. Yes, 404 agrees with me, Shangs. Love this analogy. Nerfs throw a bearer token not found. Yeah, it's definitely really funny making analogies throughout a lot of different things that we deal with on a day-to-day life. But yeah, it's very funny when nerfs are very out of place and not really working as they properly should. But yeah, that's kind of just how the contract works. And if you ever think about a time, like maybe during a hackathon, maybe when you're building your public APIs, those of you that said you were threes, if you can think about a time that you used a website or an app and it didn't really work as well as you wanted it to, maybe the app gave you an error or it didn't really load the data as fully as you wanted, that's because the kind of contract between the app and the API wasn't followed to the T, like how they wanted it to be followed, because the API changed without notice or there was some other error. So as developers, understanding this kind of API contract means reading documentation super carefully. And later on, we're going to go into why documentation is super important and how you can find this documentation. But this documentation is kind of like a menu for a cafe, or how you talk to people when you talk to baristas or waiters or anything like that. So it tells us how to communicate with the API and what we can expect from the API in return. So specifically about our language. So APIs use REST. REST stands for Representational State Transfer. And I know that's kind of interesting because it's like, REST, but it's just representational state transfer. I think it's just because it's easier to say REST than it is to say RST. So you don't need to remember that. All that you need to know is that REST is a super widely adopted standard way for web apps to talk to servers. So there's these things called RESTful APIs. They use standard web protocols, primarily HTTP, which is the same protocol your browser uses to load web pages. So if you've ever copied a URL or anything like that, you see HTTP when you're usually using it. So when you type in a URL or click a link, your browser is making a GET request from that website. So you can kind of imagine the internet as a big postal service like UPS or something like that. If y'all are in the United States. If you're not, actually, wait, I think UPS, United Postal Services. I'm not sure. I think FedEx delivers internationally. But you can kind of think about it like HTTP is the mail systems language. So you have these things called RESTful APIs, and they send and receive letters in this language. But the letters follow certain rules. Each of these letters have a specific address or an endpoint, a subject, like a method like get or post, and a body, which is data. So this language consistency makes it much easier for developers all over the world to build apps that can talk to a bunch of different APIs without having to learn a different way to communicate for every new service. Yeah, 404 says, I can't stop making bad jokes, but does that mean these APIs get a full 8 hours of sleep? Honestly, I don't think the APIs sleep. I mean, I think definitely with RESTful APIs, that definitely implies that they sleep, but they are online at all hours. So, I definitely think that they're staying awake for most of the time and not getting a full 8 hours, but maybe they're just running on caffeine and they don't need sleep. But don't worry about the bad jokes. I find them really funny. Keep them coming. So now we're going to move on to kind of our main action, which is get. So the most common action you're going to see is get. It's the read-only action. So you can think of get as peeking at a book on the shelf. So you're not really changing the book, you're just reading the information inside. So when we make a get request, we're asking the API itself to kind of fetch some data for us. So you can kind of think about it like if you throw a ball at a dog and you ask a dog to go fetch. That's kind of what fetch means. So when we're making a get request, that's exactly what we're doing. If, for example, if we're asking a weather API, like the weather app or anything like that, if we're asking them like, what's the temperature in New York right now? That's a get request. Ooh, I see the chat is like popping off. What is this? Developers rest. Yeah, Way's correct. Developers rest while the APIs do the work. So maybe the developers are getting a full 8 hours of sleep, but the APIs definitely are not. The APIs are running for the whole time. So rest is actually a kind of a language that the APIs use. So it's how the web apps talk to the servers. It's not really protocol. It's more of how the web apps talk to the servers. Lol says, what's the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? Honestly, I will get into that later. Don't even worry. We're going to cover that later in the slide. I've got a whole slide deck for that. So don't worry about that. And yeah, it's kind of like guidelines and conventions. It's just the way that the web apps talk to the servers. You don't really need to worry about what that is right now. It's just kind of a term in case you've heard that before, and you can get a little bit more knowledge about that as well. But I think I've answered everything so far. So I'm going to get back to what I was talking about. So GET requests specifically are super safe because they don't alter any data. They're really important because it helps developers avoid any unintentional changes when they're just getting information. So just like what we were talking about, any errors that might occur. So there are a couple of other actions that you can use, kind of like verbs. There's a lot of different verbs when you talk about APIs. So there's 3 main verbs that are really interesting. So post, put, and delete. So all of these verbs help us modify data. Post means creating something new. So you can kind of think about it as sending as a new letter or placing a new order within like a customer delivery service. Put is like replacing or updating. For example, updating your profile information. Delete, kind of self-explanatory, but it deletes your data, removes your data. So for now, we're going to focus on the GET request because it's the easiest way to start and it'll allow us to get data from APIs super quickly. We'll cover those other verbs maybe later or maybe in the future in other streams, but today's all about getting comfortable with the very bare bone basics. So don't worry about it. I just kind of wanted to mention it in case y'all have heard about it before. Ooh, I see a comment from Mushang. Can you briefly talk about GraphQL and with it replace REST API and SOAP? So this is a very interesting question. I'm just covering the basics for today. GraphQL and these concepts are a little bit harder. The session's geared a little bit more towards basics about API and being able to build a project, but definitely in the future, I'd love to cover those topics. So stay tuned in the future. But I kind of wanted to dive into another specific example. So I've been talking about Spotify a lot. It's mainly just because it's like one of the most popular kind of concepts for an API that's easy to wrap your head around. So if you look at this URL, for example, this is kind of a link to an API. So this first part that I've highlighted here, https api.spotify.com v1, that's the endpoint. So you can think of this kind of as the main street address for the API. It tells you exactly where the request that you're putting in is going. So if you're mailing a letter, kind of going back to this analogy that we were using before, the endpoint is the address of the post office or the destination building, wherever you're sending it. So if you've ever sent mail for anything, that's what the endpoint is. It's kind of like your destination address, where your request is going. This is super important because all of the APIs live under this umbrella. Everything that you want from Spotify, so what we were talking about before, like songs, artists, albums, that all live somewhere inside this endpoint where your data is. Then you've got your path. So using, again, the same URL, this /search is the path. This tells the API exactly what you want to do. So we talked about the endpoint. If the endpoint is a building, so let's say the post office building, so you're delivering from one post office A to post office B, then the path is the specific office or department inside that building. So for example, if we used like a grocery store, the endpoint is the store itself and the path is the aisle. So maybe like dairy, produce, or snacks. So /search here tells Spotify that you want to search the database. Imagine that you're like at a library, you're looking for a book. If any of you like to read, I love reading, so definitely talk to me about that. But if you want to find a book, you don't wander the whole building. That would take like hours, especially if you're in a big library. So you go to the catalog or a specific section. That's your path, how you get there. So understanding the path helps you tell the API precisely what you want. Ooh. Okay, so lastly, everything after that question mark that you see, so we've covered like the first part, and then we cover the search, and now we're covering the last part. So this is called the query, what's highlighted in yellow here. The query refines your request with specific parameters. So specifically like the filters that you're applying when you're shopping online. You know, you do like small, you do like cotton, blue, things like that. These are filters. So you're refining your request with specific things that you want. So this request is specifically saying like, you know, look for Daft Punk and look for Daft Punk being your artist, look for Beatles being your artist, different things like that. This specific request is asking for one specific artist, which is Daft Punk. So queries let us get exactly what we want without having any extra noise or experiencing any irrelevant data. Ooh, don't worry. I'm not going to ignore y'all's comments. Oh, Spotify's API is super, super cool to work with. I totally agree. The docs are good. OAuth makes sense. Yes, I totally agree. Oh, you stole it. Starter update. But yeah, Spotify's API is definitely super cool to work with, very beginner friendly, which is definitely why I keep using it so often, because a lot of people use Spotify and it very much makes sense. And no worries if any of y'all are late. I'm just super glad y'all are here. Most of the stuff I covered before is just basic content, but if something doesn't make sense, just let me know and I can go back or explain it a little deeper. So yeah, once we've gotten the query, you can kind of understand that APIs are kind of all around you. So you'll see this API URL pattern where you have the endpoint, the path, and the query. You'll see that everywhere. So you're seeing APIs basically everywhere. Our social media apps behind the scenes, they're calling APIs to fetch any other data. So for example, if you're on Instagram, you're using APIs to fetch any of your friends' posts that are coming up on your Instagram feed. Same thing with Google Maps. If y'all use Google Maps or Apple Maps, API calls request location data and directions. It's the same thing with a lot of different apps, and you'll see that now that you have this knowledge. You'll see that once you go around to different apps, you start thinking about how that works. So APIs are basically like the invisible engines that are powering our digital lives. So if you think about your favorite app right now, like, you know, Spotify. I keep saying that, but it's definitely one of my favorite apps. If you think about the kind of data that it's touching via APIs, then you can just keep going into that like API rabbit hole about more and more the complexity and elegance of how these apps work. And just like, 404 was saying, Spotify's APIs are super cool to work with. And there's definitely a lot of apps like that where the APIs are just so interesting to work with. So instead of theory and kind of like abstract concepts like what we've been covering so far, we can get practical now and talk about what your specific toolkit for building with APIs is. So as developers ourselves, I'm sure all of y'all have either been a developer in the past or are hoping to become a developer in the future. That's why you're here. We have two primary tools that we use when we work with APIs. So first we have our API client, which is a specialized tool for testing API requests without writing code. And then second, we write the code ourselves so that we can build apps that talk to APIs. So I guess the second tool is kind of you. You are the tool. You're the one writing the code, and that's how you can build apps that talk to APIs. So both have their place in a developer's workflow. And if y'all have ever used an API client before, like Postman or Insomnia, that's kind of what I was talking about. So we're going to be using Postman later in our demo. So side tangent, if y'all don't have Postman downloaded already, make sure that you download Postman. Let me actually search that up and get you that URL right now. You can use the online web app if you would like. It's also there. So you can either click download or you can click use the web version. Either is totally chill. Definitely make sure you get that up and open right now, though, so that when I pull up the demo, y'all can have it going and do it with me, because one of my main goals for this session is to get y'all super involved and interested and engaged with APIs, and you can't do that unless you're following along. So either make sure you're downloading Postman or get that web version. It's both on the same link. And yeah, make sure y'all get that done. So now to talk about specifically tools, you've got your tool number one, which is kind of your lab. So API clients specifically are your lab environment. So if any of y'all are in the natural sciences, you've done lab work, you're probably familiar with like the pipette and the pools and working in a lab. So API clients are kind of like that. They're basically these super safe, interactive spaces where you can send requests and inspect resources without worrying about any code syntax or any bugs. So you can change URLs, headers, parameters, and see exactly what the API returns. It's really great for exploration, debugging, and honestly, in general, just learning how an API works. So you can kind of think about it as a flight simulator for pilots. So you can practice flying or basically sending API requests without ever leaving the ground. So if you're wondering why you would ever use this tool, lots of reasons. Why would you use an API client instead of jumping straight into code? I think is a primary question that a lot of developers have when they're starting off. So let me tell you, I think it's really important for y'all to get started using a lab because it lets you experiment quickly. You can get immediate feedback. You can save and organize your requests. And also you can share any test setups you have with your colleagues or any team members that you have if you're working on a project. So if you're working with a new API, I highly recommend starting here. Get comfortable with the requests and the responses, and then move on to the coding, because you need to understand the basics before you move on to more complicated items. So tool number two is kind of your real tool. Once you understand the API's behavior, you'll want to integrate it within your application. So if you're doing front-end web development, this means writing JavaScript code. So big header here. We are going to be writing in JavaScript today. Even if you don't know it, don't worry. I'll give you all the code. I'll explain what the code means. So no worries at all, but we are writing in JavaScript. If that piques any of your interest because you love JavaScript, definitely let me know. I love JavaScript as well. But we are going to be writing in JavaScript, and specifically, we're going to be using the fetch function, as you can see highlighted in orange over there towards the right of the screen. But fetch is built into all modern browsers. So it's how your app can talk to APIs live and show data to users in real time. So we're going to be writing code to make get requests, handle responses, and also update the web page dynamically. So I was telling y'all that we were going to do a demo, and that is exactly what we're going to do now. So we're going to see this in action. So we're going to do a live demo where we make a real API request using a tool called Postman, which is exactly what I sent that link to earlier. So definitely make sure you've downloaded that already. This tool is an API client. So you can kind of think about it as a remote control that we use to talk to servers directly without writing any code. So right now we're going to connect to a public API called the CatFacts API. I am definitely a dog person, but I think the CatFacts API is super cool. Let me know if y'all prefer cats or dogs. Very controversial topic, I'm definitely sure. But I thought this cat was super cute, so I put it on the slides. But this is a fun, super beginner-friendly API that sends back like really random facts about cats. They're very interesting. I played around with it a couple nights ago, but you don't need to sign up. You don't need to log in, no setup. So it's really, really great for learning. You don't have to make an account or anything like that. So we're going to go through the steps together. And I see 404 says that dogs are greater than cats, but I've come to love cats recently as well. Honestly, I think this is the same for me. I definitely think dogs are better than cats, but I do really love cats and they're very cute. Mildly allergic, but they're very, very cute. So go ahead and open up the Postman app on your computer. If you don't have it installed, you can follow along using the web version on postman.com in that link that I sent. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share and show y'all exactly what I'm doing with Postman. So let me get that opened up. So I'm going to stop sharing the PDF. It's going to be an infinity screen for a quick second. Sorry about that. Let me remove this. Okay. Sorry about the infinity screen, but here's Postman. I just want to make sure that everybody can see Postman. Could someone give me like a quick confirmation that you can see the Postman app when I'm sharing it? Just for reference, I'm sharing it right now. Hopefully you can see something. It's just like a white desktop. Yay! Perfect, perfect. Super glad, super glad. Okay, so this is the Postman app. Y'all definitely don't need to download it. You can use the web version, but I found that downloading the app definitely makes it a little bit easier and a little bit more fun to interact with, honestly. So once you're going to open the Postman app, you're going to click on this new button and you're going to click collection. So, I mean, honestly, I actually zoomed past it, but collection. So you create a collection to organize, document, and share your API requests with others. So this is what I was saying. So you can have your API requests in one place and make them super easy to share. So we're going to name this connection something fun. I'm going to call it Cat Fact Demo because that is exactly what this is. And you're going to click on the hyperlink that says add a request to start working. So right here, it says this collection is empty. We're going to add a request to start working. Let's go ahead and click add a request. Now we're going to configure that request. So this is that API request, that GET request that I was talking about. So in this dropdown, we see all of the different options that you can use to get an API request. So I remember I talked about like post and delete and put, but right now we're just going to use GET as our HTTP method. So we're going to paste this address in our URL field. I can type it in for y'all and then copy and paste it. It's going to be https://catfact.ninja/facts. This is a working website that works for APIs, so it'll definitely work. Super excited. But here is that code. Let me pin it just in case y'all can't see it. But there you go. That is your CatFact website that you're going to paste in the URL field. So what this is our API endpoint. It's the web address of the service that we're trying to talk to. So this is what we're going to be using to get our super, super cool cat facts. So now we're going to click that big blue send button. And boom, you should get a fact in your body really, really quick in JSON format. So it's going to look something like fact, and there's going to be a fact, and there's going to be a length, which is the number of characters in that string. So my fact is that Florence Nightingale owned more than 60 cats in her lifetime, which is absolutely crazy. I can't believe you could own 60 cats or have them. That's like absolutely insane. I'm going to go ahead and add the strides back in. Yeah, I know. It's actually insane. 404 not found says 60. Completely agree. That is an absolutely insane number. And I would love to see your facts. So if y'all have been following along with the demo, please put those facts in the chat. Some of them are really funny and very, very odd. So I will highlight you and we'll talk about them because they're very fun. Yeah, 60 cats is crazy. I don't even know how you go about like acquiring 60 cats. That's an absolutely insane number. Joro says some common houseplants poisonous to cats include English ivy, iris, mistletoe, philodendron, and yew. Interesting. Okay, so if any of y'all own cats and you have those plants, guess you've got to get rid of them now. Ooh, Marv Gar says tests done by the Behavioral Department of the Museum of National History conclude that while a dog's memory lasts about 5 minutes, a cat's recall can. Oh, that's very interesting. This is probably why if you like accidentally step on a cat's tail, they get really mad and they're like mad at you for the next 2 days. But with a dog, they forgive you in like 10 minutes. That's probably because they don't remember. Wei said cats have been domesticated for half as long as dogs have been. See, that's probably why dogs are really friendly and cats just like hiss all the time or are just very, very aggressive. I can see that. I can understand that. But keep those cat facts coming. I'll talk a little bit more about what we did while y'all are getting your demo working. So let me know if you can't get that working and I will definitely help you troubleshoot. But what you just saw, all these facts that I highlighted, all these facts that y'all just sent in, that is real-time data that is from the internet delivered via an API. I'm not really sure if this is a fact or this is some knowledge. Cats do have sass. I agree. They are very, very sassy and hissy and just fussy in general. Kanishk says, I got a morbid one. Oh my god! Nearly 4 million cats are eaten in Asia. That's honestly not great. Oh no. 404 says the Hungarian long-haired cats have been scientifically proven to have the furriest. Oh, okay, you just made that up. I think I should read these comments before I highlight them. But yes, maybe they do have the furriest hair. Maybe even though you made that up, that's still a true fact. But what we just did was a GET request. So remember earlier I was saying like, oh, the GET request is just asking the server to give you information. The CatFacts server replied with some data in a format which we call JSON. JSON just stands for JavaScript Object Notation. JSON is made up of key value pairs. That's kind of how you can think about it. And in this case specifically, the facts key holds the text of just some random cat fact they generated from somewhere. The length key tells us how many characters are within that fact. So this is how most APIs on the web work right now. So you send a request to a specific URL and the server responds with that structured data. So if you actually try clicking send again, you'll get a random new fact and you should try it. So this shows that the API is live and dynamic. So actually, let me go ahead and do that really quick. Okay, I don't like seeing the whole face, but let me go ahead and show y'all. So I'm gonna go back to my app and I'm gonna do send again. There you go. I got cats' hearing is much more sensitive than humans and dogs. Very interesting. Maybe that's why they're grumpy all the time. They just hear like really random noise. Oh no, it's not sharing. Uh-oh. Wait. There you go. I didn't show y'all. But yeah, that's the new fact that I got. But here, let me do send again. And I got another one. A cat has more bones than a human. Humans have 206 and the cat has 230. That's actually very interesting. I did not know cats had that many bones. But honestly, that makes sense because I feel like cats move around in a very bony way. I don't honestly know. Ooh, some more facts are coming in. Jorah says cats have 300 million neurons. Dogs have about 160 million. Honestly, these are really interesting facts. I feel like dogs were more intelligent, but I guess cats are. Interesting. But yeah, when we do the send request again, the reason why you get a new fact is because the API is live and dynamic. The structure stays the same every time. As you can see, it's just fact and length every single time you hit a new send. And that consistency is super key to how developers interact with API. So APIs give you access to real data from all across the world. And you don't need to send up you don't need to set up a database or a backend server to do it. So just to recap, we sent a request to a public API using Postman, either the web app or the actual desktop app. Either one works. And then we got back data that was structured in JSON data instantly. So this is how modern apps, from any apps like Instagram to Uber to Spotify, that's how they fetch live data every single day. So now that you've seen it, you're ready to start doing it in our actual very, very cool live demo where we're going to be doing a lot of code. So that was just a small little mini demo to get y'all interested and super engaged, and hopefully continue to pay attention. But that was just a super small demo just to show you how that works. But we're going to get to our actual big live project demo that you can put on your profiles and talk about to your friends, brag about to your friends. We're going to get to that soon. So yes, live demo, yay! We're gonna get started on our live demo very, very soon. We're gonna go over some really, really key information in a little bit, and then we're gonna go on to our live demo, which is very, very cool. So now we're going to move on to a little bit more information. Oh my God, it's like, I don't know why the formatting didn't copy over properly, but I promise it was not this unable to read, but that says the response format. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what you just saw. So we saw the JSON response format. So JSON again stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So it's kind of like a lightweight text-based format for representing data. I say lightweight, not like actual physical weight, but lightweight in terms of storing data. So it's super easy for humans to read and for machines to parse and generate. Almost every single web API uses JSON to send data back to you. So I have a super fun mini quiz for y'all to check if you've been paying attention. What do you think the two parts of a JSON pair represent? I actually just talked about this, so hopefully y'all are able to come up with the answer. But the question was, what do you think the two parts of a JSON pair are? If you need a oh, yay! Joro already got the answer. Very smart. Key and value, correct. Flying Girl also got it. Kanishka also got it. Yay! Great job to y'all. Perfect. And yes, that is true. The key value pairs are exactly what that is. So that's what the two parts of a JSON pair represent. Oh, I just got this joke now. I read that comment and I was like, what are they talking about? Who's Jason? No, it's JSON as JSON. But very funny joke. I appreciate that. But yes, Rosent and Krishna saying, yes, key and value. So those are the two parts of the JSON pair, and that's what they represent. So thank y'all for your interaction. Super glad that y'all were able to get that. Very cool. Yes, Dinesh is right. Kind of like Python dictionary values. In Python dictionaries, you've got keys and values. So very, very fun analogy. Very cool link there. Great job. So now we're going to talk about like a real response. So we talked about that cat facts API, and we saw that fact. So the fact is the key, and the string about the cats is the value. That probably makes sense to you. All of y'all got your specific fact, and that kind of like string where it's like string fact, that's your key. Your value is the actual cat fact. In JavaScript, this maps to an object that you can easily manipulate and access. So this standardization of a key value pair always helps it make it really easy and possible to write code that can handle data from like hundreds, thousands of APIs without reinventing the method every single time and making life even harder for developers. So now before we dive into coding and a live demo, here's the very, very important catch. API calls take a lot of time. Your code doesn't just wait around doing nothing in your VS Code editor. It keeps running. And this concept is called asynchronous programming. So again, going back to our coffee shop example, if you imagine ordering a coffee or whatever drink y'all like, and while you're waiting, you start checking your emails, or like you get on Slack, you get on your messages, you get on Discord, instead of standing still. So imagine you're doing that while you're ordering coffee. So if your code waited for every single response, your app would just freeze. It wouldn't be fun. So we use JavaScript promises to handle this. So I don't actually know if I explained that analogy very well, but it's basically just like if you're waiting in a line for coffee and you just wait forever and you don't even go and get your drink, you're just like waiting there and they forgot about you, you'd be bored. And it's the same way that if your code waited for every response, it would be bored, but instead of being bored, it would just freeze. You're usually doing something else while you wait for coffee, while you wait for your food, things like that. So we use JavaScript promises to handle this. Now, what are promises? Promises are kind of like IOUs for data. And I mean like the letters IOU, but also specifically IOU in terms of the words. But when you call fetch, it returns something called a promise. A promise that says, I'll have the data for you soon. And it's telling you like, I promise I'll get you the data. Then you attach a then callback to tell the JavaScript what to do exactly when the data arrives. So it's kind of a different way of thinking, but it helps your app be super fast and super responsive and not freeze because it's waiting for the responses all the time. So quick example of how .then works in JavaScript. This is kind of how we handle promises, which is a super common way of dealing with things that take time in JavaScript, like APIs or file loading. And I know this kind of contradicts what we saw with the Catfax API because we were able to get that super instantly, but that was just because we were requesting a piece of data from the API. Usually when you have code and you have like a big code file or something like that, it takes much, much longer. So if we have a function, for example, like a fetch data function where we're fetching data, you can simulate a real world task, like, for example, calling an API. Then you can use something called like set timeout, which fakes a delay. So after 2 seconds, it'll resolve the promise. Then again, use that .then function to say, when that promise is done, run the function. If everything works, it'll log the result. Then if something goes wrong, use the .catch function to handle the error. So if you've ever seen like a big code base or you've coded your own things, you might catch the error. That's if something goes wrong, you can do something else. So this is kind of the foundation for asynchronous JavaScript, and you'll see it basically everywhere when you're running APIs because APIs take a really long time to run. But what if something goes wrong? What if the server's offline? So that again is where that .catch function comes in. It catches any errors and it lets us handle them super, super gracefully. So maybe it even shows a friendly message to users or retry their requests. So I've done this sometimes where I'll be like coding something and I'm like, oh, but what? I'm telling them to get the data, but what if, this person doesn't have an email listed with their data? That's what you have your catch function for. You put in like a friendly message or something like the user doesn't have this X data field, which might be email or something like that. So error handling using this catch function is very, very critical in API development because a lot of times APIs take really long time. Sometimes they might not have data. Sometimes the request might not work. So very, very important to have the .catch function or just in general error handling. So now we're going to get to our very fun part. So live demos are usually very short, but this is going to be a little bit longer of a live demo so we can build something super cool and build a very, very nice project out for y'all. So we're going to be building our own app. So we're going to create a movie finder app that lets users search for movies and see the results of the search for this movie instantaneously. You just put in the movie and you get it immediately. It's a super simple app, but it covers everything that we've talked about so far in terms of basics. So it covers user input, so how the user gives input, covers API requests, we're going to be using the GET request, covers asynchronous data handling, so just in case something goes wrong, and also, having that delay built in, and also dynamic UI updates. So you don't want a static web page that never updates when you work on it and just kind of stays the same. You want something that changes as you change your input. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. This is a super cool beginner project that I hope y'all will enjoy because I want it to make sure that y'all understand the APIs and how they work in the real world. Because, this is kind of how it works in the real world too. If we're searching something on I don't know if Redbox is still a thing in a lot of states, but in Texas, we still have Redbox. And you can kind of search up for a movie and all the movies will come. And that's basically what we're doing. Redbox might have a couple more features, like if the movie is available, if the disc is available, how many are available. But we're just going to be implementing basic, I'm going to search up for a movie, and then the movie's going to come with a bunch of lists. So we're about to build a mini web app. We're going to be using HTML for structure, CSS for style, specifically with Tailwind because we want some very fancy style. And like I said, this is going to be a JavaScript demo. We're using JavaScript for interactivity and API calls. So our final result in a project is going to be a search bar with a list of matching movies that have been pulled from a real-world API. So now we're going to get started on our data source. So last time we used catfacts.api. So to power this app, we're going to be using the OMDB API, which is the Open Movie Database. This is a super cool database because it's free, it's well documented, and honestly, it's super ideal for beginners. This API is going to give us access to data like movie titles, posters, release years, other things like genres, actors, like Rotten Tomato ratings, things like that. So we're going to send it a search query, and it's going to send us back JSON data with matching movies. So first, to go to this API, we're going to visit that link first. So I'll paste that link in for y'all. It's going to be www.omdb.ap. I don't really know how to pronounce that, not sure. Let me make sure that that link is correct. And yep, it is. So if y'all are following along and you want this super cool demo on your resume, profile, portfolio, make sure you check out that link. So we're going to go ahead and click on this link, and it's going to take us to the database specifically. So let me go ahead and go to that link myself and make sure it's still working. So if y'all want to check out the documentation, you can also go to the usage tab and check out the different types of documentation. So it shows you how it's sending the data requests and how it's handling the poster request. You can honestly just like check out the web page. It's got a couple of different features and things that you can look through. Very, very interesting, very, very cool. I don't think this API has as much documentation as something we're going to be looking into later. I'm going to be covering documentation specifically later. Don't worry, Dinesh, I'm not sharing anything just yet. But yeah, y'all can scroll through that link and see if you find anything interesting. We're going to be going over documentation a little bit later. So yeah, don't worry, Dinesh. I know the screen's not shared. I'm not hearing anything. So that's our data source. And just like many APIs, OmDB requires an API key. So you can kind of think of an API key as your personal library card. So I've talked a lot about books. Hopefully y'all like books as well. If you have a favorite book, definitely let me know. But this is kind of your personal library card. So in order to get into a library and rent books, rent DVDs, things like that, you need to have your own library card. And that's kind of what an API key is. It identifies you and helps the API provider manage traffic. So the good news is sometimes API keys cost money, but with OmDB, you don't have to pay for the API key. It's free and super easy to get. So we're going to go to this link. I'll paste another one incoming. And this is where we're going to get our API key. So it's super easy. You just have to put in your email and your name, and you can go ahead and get that API key. It'll come to your email almost instantly. If it's not coming instantly, check your spam. Maybe try a different email if you have another one. But check that out. That's how you get your API key. Here, I can go ahead and actually just show y'all how to do that really quick. Let me do that. Okay, so we're going to go back to the link. We're going to do www.omdbapi.key. So this link is in y'all, or is in the chat for y'all to use. Yeah, sharing perfect. So this is how you get your API key. You're going to go to this link. You're going to choose the free plan. Make sure you don't check the Patreon plan, please. Don't pay for something that you don't need to. You have 1,000 daily credit limits. You definitely don't need more than that. So just make sure you're paying for the free plan, or not paying, and you're going through the free plan. So, enter your email, like whatever your email is. I'm putting in something fake. Put your first name in, put your last name in, and you can put in a use. I just put like demo. It doesn't really care. I think it's just tracking this for safety purposes. And then go ahead and get submit. So it'll send you an API key that works for you. So make sure y'all do that. I am not going to do that because I already have my API key because I didn't want to do it during the demo and waste some time. So make sure y'all do that and copy this key. Keep it somewhere super, super safe because you're going to need that key for this demo. And it's going to be very important to running the demo itself. So let me know if you're not able to get an API key. I can see if I can try to get one for somebody really quick, but you should be able to with your email. And yes, SmartGar is correct. They do have some mail delays with Yahoo and Microsoft emails, Hotmail, Outlook, or Live. So if you have any of those accounts, just make sure that you either check your email very frequently or try a different account. You don't really need the API key now. You'll only need it when we deploy the code because that's when you need your code to work. So no worries if it doesn't come immediately. You don't need it right now. You're just going to need it towards the end of the demo when we start running our code. So hopefully everybody was able to get their API key. I'm going to keep this up for a couple more seconds, see if anybody needs any help. Let me know if you need anything. Oh, shoot. Yes, Flying Girl, that is the key. Please, I don't know if you can delete that. Please, nobody use their key. Just for reference, you should never share your API key because that is your specific API key associated with your email. You don't want anyone else using your API key. And also it's limited to 1,000 credits. So if somebody else uses your key, then you don't have those credits anymore. So please make sure you don't share your key. Guys, just please don't use Flying Girl's key. Actually, I don't even know if you can see it, but No worries at all. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Just don't do it in the future. Quick note for everybody, especially when you're at hackathons, if you're getting like a Gemini key or anything like that, make sure you're not exposing it anywhere. That's a problem we see with a lot of live demos. People will be demoing and showing their code, and they'll accidentally expose their API keys. So make sure that you don't do that. Wei is asking if it lets you reset the key. I don't think so. If you put in the email that you used previously, it just tells you that you already have a key. So Flying Girl, you should be good. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it. Hopefully your key still works. But if it doesn't work, then just use a different email if you're able to, or just try it again tomorrow. It might work then. But you'll still have the code for the project. It just might not work as well as you want to. But no worries. Just a note for the future. Make sure y'all are not sharing your API keys. Similar to like how you wouldn't share your credit card, library cards. Just make sure you're not doing that. So now we're going to talk about the kind of like game plan for what we're going to do. So basically what we're going to be doing for our project, breaking down our project into simple components. So we're going to be following kind of, I guess, the 3 pillars of front-end web development that people use a lot. So we're going to be doing HTML for the layout and the structure of our website. Then we're going to be using CSS, specifically Tailwind, to style the app and make it look super clean, very cool. And then we're going to be using JavaScript for our logic, fetching data, and also for updating the page. So I'm going to be going step by step so y'all can follow along. Please feel free to code with me. I'm going to be coding like letter by letter. I'm not copy pasting anything. So definitely feel free to join. I would open up a code editor right now. I typically use VS Code just because it's a little bit easier and fun to demo with. And you're going to go ahead and make 2 files. So you're going to call them index.html and then script.js. Make sure you use those names so that you don't run into problems later with your code. I accidentally used a different name and I was trying to troubleshoot my errors for like 3 hours, and then I realized you had to use those names. So definitely make sure you're doing that. So now we're going to get into the live demo coding portion of our day, our stream specifically. So go ahead and open up your code editor. I'm going to open up VS Code. Like I said, that's what I like the most. And I'm going to go ahead and open up a new file. So let me show y'all how to do that. Just trying to get out from where it is right now. That's not great. Okay. Or actually, yeah. Let me go back. Okay, I'm going to stay on this slide for a little bit just so I'm not accidentally exposing my API key when I'm creating this file. But in the meantime, make sure y'all open up your code editors and have it ready to go. You want to have both of these files in there and make sure that you're able to copy and paste that. So okay. Yeah, so you're gonna want to do index.html, and then you're gonna want to do script.js. So they're gonna be called different things on my computer just because I've already ran this demo just to make sure it worked before this. But you're gonna want to make sure that you call it that just so you're able to find these files and have them deployed properly when you're making it. So index.html and script.js. Sorry if this is taking just a bit longer. I just got to make sure that I have got this ready for y'all when I screen share, and I am good. Let me go ahead and add that in. Okay. So we're going to go over into VS Code. I hope y'all are able to see. Could I get like a quick confirmation that you can see my VS Code? Anybody? Yay! Thank you, Joro. Okay, perfect. You can see my code. So as you can see, I've got my script.js and index.html files. I know they're called different things. Don't call them different things on your computer. I just didn't delete them before this, so I can't make new files. Make sure script.js and index.html if you need to see that. Oh, okay. It's going to be script.js. Oh my God, stop doing that. Okay, that's not very kind. And then index dot. Oh my God, why does it keep auto? Okay. Okay, So these are the tool file names that you'll want if you don't have them already. And make sure, oh yes, we can see VS Code. Can you zoom in a bit? Yes, no worries. Let me zoom in. Sorry if y'all were not able to see properly. Let me zoom in. Yeah, hopefully that is, actually I can zoom in more. That might be too much. Okay, hopefully that's zoomed in enough for everybody. Is VS Code like the Bible for all developers? Yes, Flying Girl is asking if VS Code is, yes, it is definitely the Bible for all developers. Everyone does use it, and it is very, very, very fun. People use it mostly just because it's like really, really cool. It can have a lot of built-in extensions, very easy to use, very easy for developers to use. So you don't have to use it, but I just think a lot of people use it. It's just easier anyways. But yeah, feel free to use what you want. These are the two file names you will need, so make sure you do that. By the way, if you need a quick refresher on how to create files, you just do file, new file, and then you like put in your name, and then it'll ask you where you want to store that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start in editing in our index file. So first up, we're going to be using HTML. This is the bare bones layout of our app. So we're going to need three things when we're coding this. We're going to need a text input so that users can type the movie name. We're going to need a button to start the search for the movies. And then we're going to need a container where we can insert these results dynamically. So first, we're going to be typing this. So this is going to tell the browser that we're using modern HTML, which is HTML5. So it's already got it auto-corrected for me, and actually it just did that for me, so that's perfect. Some of y'all might have autocorrect, or not autocorrect, auto-generate, I think is what it's called, and that will auto-generate your code if you help it give a little bit of instruction. So that's what you're going to need first. And then I'm going to do HTML language English, so it's already got that for me too. And this starts the HTML document and sets the language to English. So actually, I think it's got the rest of what I want here, which is perfect. So let me just go ahead and do that actually. So we're going to, this specifically, what this line means is the head contains setup info. So this has setup info that you'll need for your web app, which is things like titles, scripts, and styles. So everything that's under this sub of head has everything that you'll need to have the setup information for your website. So specifically what this line is it's ensuring that we can support all of our characters. So we're using the character set of UTF-8. So we can support all characters, including emojis and symbols. So if you have a movie that has an emoji in the title, then that's what you will use. Like, that's why we use this character set. So we have more options available to us. Also, feel free to put any questions in the chat if anybody has any. I am swiping in and out very frequently, so definitely let me know if something goes wrong, or if you have any questions, I can definitely help. Then we've got our title, Movie Finder. So you can call this whatever you want. I called it Movie Finder because that's what we're doing with this web app. And this is going to set up the title that shows up in the browser tab. Then we have this next line number 6. This is going to load our JavaScript file. So this defer function waits until the HTML is loaded to load the website. Then we have this super crazy, very, very long URL. But let me zoom out actually so you can see that long URL in its entirety. But what this does is it loads the Tailwind CSS from a CDN so that we can use these utility classes for styling. I'll actually copy and paste this just in case your code editor did not auto-populate, just so it's a little bit easier for y'all to see, because I know that that's honestly a lot to type in and see all at once. So feel free to copy and paste that. That's how we're going to be having our fun little coded website. Then we're going to do another one. So there you go. It closes the head section. That's what that is. And actually, it's auto-populated the rest for me too, which is perfect. Okay. So that's what this is. It closes the head section, closes your basic data in basic structure info section. Then next, you're going to have this body class section. So this is going to start the visible page of part of the page where you can see. And basically, I have it set up to do a light gray background and a little bit of padding. That's what this BG gray is, and the padding is 6. So y'all can update that as much as you would like, change the colors. There are specific colors that you have to use, like specific title names that they ask for. I just use gray because it's like the most universal color that'll show up on a lot of different things. But feel free to use whatever you would like. It's honestly totally editable. You don't have to pick what I pick. Then I ended up going with this line, which is number 10. So this is a centered container with max width, which is used to keep the content nicely readable. So what this does is every time a web page loads, instead of having the content like all over, all widths, all heights, it's going to be centered in the middle, and all of our content is going to be within this container. Then you've got this next line, which is line 11, and this is a big bold heading at the top of the app, which is going to be our movie finder. So that's what we've got at the very, very top in big bold lettering so that y'all can see exactly what this web app is for. And I'll copy and paste this line too, because this is a crazy long line that it generated for me, but ooh, couldn't find the requested file. Let me see what this error is. Somebody has an error. Couldn't find the requested file in Tailwind CSS. Let me go back. That's Postman. Oh, so if you were trying to click on it, Roko's end, if you were trying to click on that link, you don't need to click on that link. You just need it in your code. So that requested file error shouldn't be coming up unless you're trying to run it. So don't run that just yet. Hopefully that solves the error. Then we've got our next line. So the line that I just copied and pasted for y'all, this big placeholder search for a movie, this is going to be our text input where the user will type the movie name. So this is going to be styled with Tailwind, this specifically, and this is our input. So this is going to be a quick placeholder search for a movie. So it's kind of like when y'all ever, if you've ever entered something, like if it says like you're shopping for something and it says type your item name, and then immediately once you start typing that goes away, that's why it's a placeholder. Next, we've got our button. Let me copy and paste that for y'all as well. Make it a little easier for you to type. Here's the next one coming up. Let me know if at any point any of this is going a little too fast or a little too slow. I will adjust my speed according to what y'all want. So this is the search button. It's got a blue background, white text, and nice padding and spacing. I did blue just because I like blue, but y'all can change it to any color if you want. You can do another white, a different like type of color. I did white text to make it pop against the background, but again, you can do whatever you want. And then we've got another line, which is our results line. So this empty div is going to hold all of the movie results after a search. So essentially, after the user searches for a movie and all these results pop up, that's what this empty div is going to hold. Then we use this line to close the centered container. Then we're going to do another one. We're going to do body. It's going to close the body, and it's got that auto-populated for me. Perfect. And then we're going to close the HTML. So you can check. So if you all have ever done any programming, Dinesh thinks we should speed up. So if anybody else feels that way, definitely let me know. I can go a little bit faster as well. Was worried about y'all if you're doing intro, but I can go a little bit faster if that helps. But we did close the div, we did the body, and we did the HTML. So make sure that your indentations are aligned properly to make sure that you're going to have your code working. And that's what we're going to do. So it closes the container, it closes the body, and it closes the HTML. So that was our HTML document. That's what we're going to be having for now. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Always make sure you save your work. That's our HTML document for now. We're going to be moving on to the JavaScript portion. So now we're going to connect our JavaScript to these HTML elements. So we're going to use document.querySelector to grab and store them so that we can use them later in our logic. So we're going to make a constant, and we're going to call it search input. And we're going to do document. Oof, it didn't like that. Document.querySelector. So it's already got that. And search input. Perfect. It's got that as well. And it's got search button, and it's got results. Perfect. Okay. So what this is we're creating three constants. We're doing our search input, our search button, and our results container. And we're using the document query selector to grab and store all of these constants so that we can use them later within our code. Let me make sure we don't have any questions. Wait, I don't think the CSS link in the style tag is loading. Try the suggested way, which is this. Yeah, okay, we can do that. I did try writing it before and it did work, but if it's not working, we can definitely do that as well. Let me double check. Yeah, We can also change that in later after we're done with the JavaScript as well, if that's not working. Once we upload the code, we can also edit that. So no worries at all. If that's not working, we can definitely make that change. So now once we've got the constants going, we're going to make the script interactive. So not the script, the app. We're going to make the movie finder app interactive. We're going to use something called an add event listener function to listen for when someone clicks on the search button. So that's when we're going to call our main function if somebody clicks on something. So I actually think it's perfect. Okay, it auto-populated that. That's great. Okay. Oh, I don't know why it's auto-populating that. Okay, so you've got your search button and it's adding an event listener on click. So that's going to be your event listener when somebody clicks on your search button. We're making another constant and we're doing a search input value. If the search term is present, which means that the user has your search term, then we're going to search the movies. Make sure. What is that? Oh, that's a thumbs up. Okay. Why use hashtag search input? We'll use hashtag just for the language of the coding. Like, it doesn't really matter, but it's more for the functionality of the programming language. It's not for us, it's more for the language. Please zoom in. Thank you. I forgot to zoom back in. Let me do that. Thank you for letting me know. Rocozent, let me know if that's zoomed enough for you. If not, I can zoom in even more. But there you go. That's our event listener. Then inside our search movies function, we're going to create a full API URL with the search term and your API key as well. Then we're going to make a fetch call, which is going to be our get request in action. So here's the very important part. You have to enter in your API key. I'm not going to enter in my API key because then I would just be sharing my API key, and that would be a very, very bad idea. So I'm going to do that. And actually, I think my computer is auto-populating from the demo that I already did. So just for a quick second, I am going to stop screen sharing just in case my computer decides to dox me and present my API key one more time. I don't want it to do that. That would, yeah, see, okay. It did decide to dox me. Very glad I did that. Okay. So I'm going to go back to screen sharing then. Glad I double checked that. So, okay. So this is where we are now. Make sure you add in this constant. So right here, you're going to enter in your own API key. Make sure you still have the strings. That's how it refers to the API key. Replace it with that combination of lowercase letters and numbers that you got in your email. I'm just not doing it now because I don't want to expose my API key. Then you're going to make a function. Okay, again, it's already got that. I think it's just copying from the demo I did earlier. But oof. Okay. I think it's a bit too big, so I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. So we've got our function, search movies, and we're submitting our query. So let me give y'all this constant URL. Make sure that you're keeping it as your API key. You don't need to submit, or you don't need to substitute in your current API key in this link. Just copy and paste it exactly as how it should be. Lol says, could you show the first script? Could you clarify, is that the index.html file? Is that what you want to see, or is it something else? While we wait for them to respond, let me go back. Oh, okay, they're not. Oh, yes, okay, yeah. Let me go back and show you all the HTML file or index file really quick. This was our index.html file. Let me actually see if I can just copy and paste it. So I don't have to keep going back. Yes, perfect. It split it up into a couple of messages because you can't do a really big file. But hopefully most of y'all were following along and maybe you just needed like a quick check. But that is, maybe take a screenshot if that helps a little bit more so you can copy and paste it later. That is the index.html file. Going back to this, so you'll need this link that I posted in the chat, and then we're going to fetch that URL. Again, we're using the .den feature. So even, honestly, you might have this like feature here. We're going to be displaying the movies. And then again, that catch function that I was talking to y'all about, making sure that we have a catch function. If there is an error, then it'll catch that. It'll report it in the console that it was an API error. And so that's what it's reporting to us in the console when we deploy this. And then to the user, it has this results and it says something went wrong, try again. So again, this like friendly message that even if something goes wrong, you have something to catch you and you have something that your user can see. So they're not just like, why isn't it working? Then next, once the data comes back, we're going to process that and update it. So we're going to loop over the movie results and insert them as cards into the page. Oh yeah, this is again a more detailed description. So since the HTML input has the search input in JavaScript, we use the hashtag ID. That method is just different in JavaScript. So going back to the code, we're gonna do our function. And actually, it's got that for me unlocked. Perfect. So let me go over specifically what this means. So we've got our function, which is display movies. And if we're saying, if there's no movies, which is what this exclamation means, if you haven't seen that before, you usually use the exclamation to do the opposite of something. So people will do if movies to be like, oh, if there's something in movies. But if there's nothing in there, it'll say no. And we're returning to the user that no results have been found. So this is just if you search up like a super obscure movie or something that doesn't exist, it'll say no movies found, maybe like a movie that hasn't come out yet. Then we're going to start this new container and we're going to say for each movie, so this is our loop, for each movies we're going to be creating this new constant, which is a movie card, and we're going to be having this big shadow over the movie card. Then we're going to be calling the specific movie poster title from our API, and we're getting that via our placeholder, which is how we access it in the API. So we're just getting this big movie poster. And here, I'll actually copy paste this section because it's a bit long and also it's cutting off a little bit. Let me zoom out for a hot second, just in case y'all need to get a quick screenshot. We go. There you go. So that's just if y'all need it and weren't able to get it super quick because it's like really zoomed in. But that's how you get the movie poster and the movie title and all of those movie cards. And then we're going to add all of those movie cards into our container. So that was our next section. That's how we're updating the movie cards. And just like that, you've got, this web app that's going to be able to talk to a live API. And that's why it's super cool to have this like modern web that we have these days, because you can create this super, very interactive experience that can work with real-time data. And this is kind of how you see the movie cards of Netflix. This is probably how they're able to get it too. Obviously, they're not using like the OMDB API. They probably have their own internal tools, but this is kind of like a very rough look of how they're able to do that. So this functionality makes sure that your project works, but we want to make sure that the user can also really like how the app feels. So so when you share this project, you want to make sure that it looks really good. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So we already added Tailwind CSS in the HTML file. So here, through that link, and you can actually tweak the styling inline using Tailwind classes. So you can try improving the padding, the font sizes, the background colors, and a couple of different aspects as well. Specifically for this project, we're going to be using Tailwind CSS. So I keep saying that. Let me explain what that means before I just keep using the term. But it's a utility-first CSS framework. So what is that? That sounds, again, like a lot of big words. It basically just lets you build modern responsive designs directly in your HTML. So actually, let me go back to the slides, just so I'm not just talking in front of a screen that I'm not coding in front of. I actually think I built in a couple of slides. I think we're on. Okay. Yes. So this is what we're on, explaining Tailwind CSS a little bit deeper. So this framework helps you build super modern, very responsive designs directly within your HTML so that you don't have to code any of that yourself. So typically what people will do if they want to make a really cool app or design it themselves is they will create a custom CSS class. So they'll use something like .btn or .header. That's really complex. It takes a lot of time and it just requires a lot of effort. So instead, you can use predefined utility classes like what we used before. So like BG, background blue, or text center, or P4, P6. We had those things within our code. So we can use things like that to style our elements in the text line. Tailwind is super, super popular, but I think it's especially popular with developers like us because it gives us a lot of control, full control, in fact, over our layout and design without forcing any particular style. It lets you go back and forth a lot. And the reason why people like using it a lot is because you can prototype fast, you don't need to write a custom CSS, and you can also style directly within the HTML using the class names that y'all saw, like the BG Blue and the Text Center. I see a couple of comments. Oh yeah. Wade says they were very skeptical about Tailwind CSS, but they're a fan, and that is true. It really does shine with the help of AI. It might be a little bit confusing at first, but it definitely is very cool and very helpful and helps you get able to prototype things very, very fast. So we didn't even have to like edit specific things. We just used Tailwind and we were able to get things very, very quick. So that is something super beginner friendly. And if y'all are going to any hackathons or building any personal projects, very, very cool to use Tailwind CSS. Flying Girl again, yes, great to hear that you also like Tailwind. AI does help a lot with class names. That's true. Yeah, if you're struggling to come up with a class name or you're having a little bit of difficulty explaining what you want, AI can help you with that. That's why we had that fun little tool. So also, I've been talking about documentation a lot. So if y'all want to check out Tailwind CSS a little bit more or want to check out the documentation for that, make sure you do. I'll put that in our chat and y'all can check that out either now or on your own time. I think it's pretty cool to learn a little bit more about Tailwind. I'm like showcasing very, very basic features now just for our intro workshop, but Tailwind is a very, very cool tool. So now that you've built something super great, we can actually go ahead and deploy it. So if you've never deployed a project before, basically what that means is you have this code that works. If you want it online, you can usually just deploy it locally. So typically what that means is you'll go to VS Code and actually, instead of sharing this presentation, JK, I'm going to go and share my screen and share my code just in case people were not able to get the code properly or like had a couple of things they were questioning. Let me know if there's some specific section that you want me to hover on for a little bit so that you can get the details, because I really want y'all to deploy with me and be able to see this project come to life with me. So if you weren't able to get any information, definitely make sure to tell me and I'll hover over those lines for a little bit. By the way, just like shouting this out again, make sure that you put in your API key. You still want the strings, you just want to replace this with your API key. Again, like the comment says, replace it with your actual API key. And yeah, let me know if there's something specific that you want me to hover on. Could you show the display movies function? Yes, no worries, Joro, I got you. Here is the display movies function. Let me actually zoom out a little bit so you can see that. Or here, actually, I pasted this specific line 41 in the chat, just so you can see the rest of it, but everything else should be here. Let me see. Okay, yeah. So I'll just talk a little bit more. Oh, that's the wrong one. There's the display movies function, but yeah, we're going to be deploying this project. This is a super cool idea that y'all will do a lot. If you build something locally, you can always deploy it like within your terminal. You can like go terminal, you can like create your new terminal and you can deploy something. It'll open up on your local host. But the only issue with a local host is that you can't really show it publicly anywhere. It's not really like a URL that you can send and have actively update. You have to run it locally. So in order to deploy something, we usually use different things like GitHub Pages or Vercel or things like that. I guess like benefits and negatives of these platforms, Vercel allows for dynamic platforms. So if you're creating something that has a lot of like dynamic elements, like, like moving water or things like that, moving sand, things that move, things that change, things that shift, you're going to want to go with Vercel or other web deployment platforms, because GitHub Pages is only for static pages. So things that don't really move and shift as the user interacts with them. People just use GitHub Pages because it's a little bit easier to understand. You kind of just upload your code to GitHub and it deploys the repo that you have open, the repository. But you definitely feel free to use either. I'm going to be using GitHub Pages for this demo just because it's easier to talk about, easier for beginners. But definitely check out Vercel if that's something you're interested in. Ooh, could you oh no, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't see it. That's horrible. Okay, here's the function. Hopefully you can see it. Let me know if you can't. I did not realize I was like highlighted on my face. Sorry about that, y'all. But hopefully you can see that. Let me know if you can't. I'm going to switch over into GitHub pages soon. We almost are done. Like, I'm just going to talk about documentation and our demo for a little bit more, but I do want to see some of y'all's demos. So I'm just going to stay on this function for just one more minute. Hopefully you're able to get what you needed. Let me just double check. Yes, perfect. Oh God, wrong. Oh, I need to stop opening up Postman. But yeah, we're going to be deploying to GitHub pages, so definitely make sure that y'all are opening up GitHub. If you don't have an account, please make sure that you make one right now. You will definitely need an account for this. And go ahead and open up your GitHub. Some of you might have the desktop GitHub app, but you can always use it in the web. I'm going to use it in the web. I have the app, but sometimes it's a little finicky, so I'm just going to use the app. Let me double check. Joro, just let me know when you're good to go. Or actually, just so that I can move on and get going, let me just copy and paste that function specifically for you. Oh, yeah, you're done anyways. Well, I just said that's unfortunate. Okay, well, no worries. I'm glad to hear that you're done and that we can go ahead and move on. Thank you for letting me know that you needed that. Glad to get that information for you. If anybody else needs any other functions or any other pieces of code, want to take one last quick look at it, let me know, and I can send that to y'all or hover over it for a little bit longer. So we're going to be deploying our website now. We're going to be creating a GitHub repo. Repo is just like shorthand for repository. People use that a lot just because it's fun, it's easy, it's quick. And I actually created a guest account just for this demo, so I actually need to go find my password for that. So give me 1 second. Hopefully y'all can use this time to sign into your own GitHub accounts. My computer is killing me. 1 second. Okay, well, I think this is not great. I thought I signed into GitHub before. Give me 1 second. But yeah, while I'm waiting, if any of y'all have any questions about this project, about anything, let me know. I'm going to try to open up a new Chrome tab. Hopefully it works. Maybe I'll just switch over to Safari and show y'all there. I think I might have to do that if it's not going to. It is throwing very strong temper tantrums. Just give me 1 second. I will GitHub. Okay. It wants my verification code. It's just taking a bit longer. Sorry, y'all. Okay. I finally got it working. Thank gosh. Go back to Chrome. Where is Chrome? Okay. So, Wei is asking to deploy locally. I think I'm going to just deploy to GitHub pages really quick, just to make sure, because I'm running a little bit behind on time, but I will run it locally if we have some time left over at the end. So let me double check. Can y'all see the Safari screen on GitHub? Please confirm with me if you can. Yay, perfect. Sounds great. Okay, so this is our GitHub. Well, this is my GitHub. I'm going to create a new repo. So you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it Movie Finder because we're finding movies. That's the whole point of this project. And y'all can call it something different. You actually are probably going to have to call it something different because I'm taking, actually, here, I'll do Movie Finder 1, 2, 3, 4. or actually I'll do like some weird combination of numbers. So one of y'all can use Movie Finder because once you create a repo, I don't think you can reuse that name with anybody else. So I'm going to make it public so anyone can view it. Please make yours public as well because I want to see your projects. Eventually, we're going to have like a fun little demo session and I want to see your projects. So make yours public as well. Always add a README file. It's just good practice and you don't have to edit any of those things. I'm going to go ahead and click Create Repository. And in your repo, you're going to go to Settings. So you've got these tabs, these nice and pretty tabs over here. I'm going to go ahead and click Settings. I'm going to go over into Pages. And these are GitHub pages. This is what I was talking about before, your fun little GitHub pages. Actually, before you do that, you need to go ahead and push your files. So you're going to click Code, or you're going to add file, and you're going to upload files. So you're going to upload your files wherever you are and wherever you're doing that. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to dox myself one more time. So let me not screen share that anymore. Flying Girl says it's working. Yay, glad to hear that. Not really sure what is working, but glad to hear that regardless. So I hope it's the project. Let me upload my files. Make sure that y'all are uploading your files to the repo as well. I'm just doing this locally so I don't accidentally dox myself with my file names. So let me go ahead and add that in. Make sure you all are doing that as well. Don't know where I put my files from yesterday though. Yeah, you need your script.js and your index.html files. So make sure you've uploaded that. And let me go ahead and start screen sharing back again. So I've uploaded my files. Here they are, the exact same stuff that we saw before. I am not going to screen share my script.js file because I don't want to expose my API key, but just know that it's in there. Make sure that this is exactly what your doc is called. I'm actually going to go ahead and rename my files right now. Actually, I don't know if you can, but let me see. Yeah, just in case you called them anything different, make sure you're calling them index.html and script.js now because you're going to run into a problem later if you don't. So, oh, yay! Flying Girl says, yes, the project is working. Can't wait to deploy it. Super glad to hear that. Very, very happy. Yay, I'm glad. That's the total end result that I want. I'm actually going to keep you pinned for a little bit longer because I'm very happy about that. But make sure that your index HTML file and your script.js file uploaded and make sure that it has all the content that you want. If it doesn't, make sure you go in and edit that. If any of you copied and pasted my code exactly, just make sure that you're changing your API key and editing that in so it doesn't have what it did before. So I'm going to edit mine actually so I can add in my API key. Hopefully I'm not screen sharing. Okay, perfect. Good. Okay, now I'm going to show you what is the next step. So going back to screen sharing. Yay, fire. Super great job, Flying Girl. Very glad to hear that. And now we're going to go into settings. We're going to go to pages just like we did before. And here is where we're going to deploy our page. So we're going to go into settings pages and then we're going to go to branch. So we're going to add in main and we're going to add in root. So make sure you do that. You need the main branch because that's where you uploaded your code and then the root folder. Make sure you have exactly this. So, and then save that. Now, GitHub Pages is building your website. So you're going to have to wait for a little bit to make sure that your page is being built. Let me go back actually. It's going to take a little bit longer. Yeah, that's our let's go live slide. This is where we're going to be deploying our project. Just be patient for a little bit. It might take a little bit. It's not that complex of a project, so it won't take that long to deploy your website. But it will take a little bit because it's building it brand new from your computer. So you're definitely going to want to wait for that a little bit. But in the meantime, just check out your code, see if that works. And mine ended up, I think mine's going to end up loading. Let me double check. Ooh, okay, yes, mine did load, so let me show y'all what that looks like. This is gonna be super cool. Heads up, get ready for a very, very exciting moment. So I'm gonna click, it's gonna say your site is live at, and you're just gonna do that. You're gonna click visit site, and boom, there's our movie finder app. So it's got that fun little gray background. It's got our search bar and our search button, movie finder. So I want a couple of inputs from y'all. Can you give me a movie that you want to see? Maybe your favorite movie, appropriate requests only, please. Think about the movie poster before you ask me for it. Any movies? Oh, Karate Kid, great suggestion. I'll search up all of these. Don't even worry. If you have any other suggestions, I will search them up. Joro has asked for Karate Kid, so let's go ahead and do that. Karate Kid. So we're gonna hit the search button, and boom, there's all of our Karate Kid movies. So we've got the title, the year, and the movie poster for all those movies, which is super great. This one just might not be loading because maybe it's not present, maybe it's not loading, who knows. So great suggestion. Glad to see it's working. Flying Girl asks for Last of Us. Let's go check that. Last of Us. That was a good movie. Yes, it actually, I think, they came out pretty recently. Yeah, lots of Last of Us movies. Perfect. If anyone has any other suggestions, keep them coming. Rogozent asked for Alien. Okay, let's go ahead and do Alien. Ooh, that's a very interesting. I like that. I like that egg. Very cool. I haven't seen Alien yet personally, but that sounds fun. And I do think they are arranged by. No, they're not. Okay, maybe it's just like titles. What's next? Exit. Okay, let's do Exit. I think that was like a plane movie. No, it wasn't. Okay. No Exit. Wow, very interesting. Lots of movies. That's great. Hopefully, y'all are seeing some of your favorite movies. Mutation asks for Matrix. Let's do that. Matrix. Ooh, yes, very cool. Lots of the Matrix movies. The books were pretty great for that. Aryan asked for Home Alone. Let's go and check that. Home Alone was a great series. Have y'all seen the grown-up actor? He's like fully grown up now, and it's crazy to see that. Oh, Google Assistant, Home Alone again. I haven't seen that. Yeah, this is good. Good. Home Alone. Lots of great titles. Gods Must Be Crazy, Mu Sheng. Okay, I've never heard of that movie. Oh, yeah, there you go. I've never seen that movie. You gotta tell me if that's a good movie. Ways asking for Mission Impossible. Let's do that. I think it actually just came out, the new one. Oh, maybe it hasn't been updated yet. Or maybe, oh no, there it is. Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. Apparently that was a really cool movie if y'all want to go check that out. It's a lot of really interesting stunts. I think Tom, he like broke his ankle or something at some point for some reason. So definitely check that out. He's done a lot. Ooh, Rakazent's asking for Zombie Wars. Okay, let's do Zombie War. Oh, there's me. Zombie Wars. Let's try that out. Ooh, that is scary. Zombie Wars, yay. Okay, thank y'all so much for all of your requests. Love that engagement, love to see y'all. Super interested in that. But there you go. Now your app is live and shareable. You can copy and paste that URL. So if any of y'all want to check out my URL, here it is. This is my GitHub URL, and feel free to check that out if you want to go ahead and try doing what we did and you weren't able to get yours up. Feel free to check mine out. You can do exactly what I was doing. And I also want you to know, if any of y'all were able to get yours working, stay tuned because I'm going to do a very fun demo with y'all's projects as well. So keep trying to get your projects working if they weren't. Keep working on that. I think I did see some people saying it was working. But yeah, hopefully it's deploying. Hopefully it's working fully and able to get running. I really hope so. But yeah, so make sure you keep running your projects. I definitely do want to see that working and keep working on that because we're going to do a demo very, very soon. So before we wrap up, I also wanted to talk about something super, super important. This is the this is your most new important skill. So I told y'all I was going to get to documentation, and this is that part. When you're working with APIs, it is extremely important to learn how to read API documentation. API docs are honestly your best friend. They're just an instruction manual for working with any API out there. And once you know how to read them, you can use any API that you have access to, even ones that you've never seen before. They're going to tell you super important information, like what kind of requests you can make, what input the API expects, what kind of data you'll get back, which is called the response, and how to authenticate. I always authenticate and how to use an API key, just like the one that y'all got. So being able to navigate this documentation is more important than memorizing anything. So most developers usually actually keep API docs open when they're developing so that they have really, really useful information available to them whenever they're creating their code. So we're going to go through a live API documentation walkthrough because this is super important to me that y'all understand how to do this. So take a pause if you're working on your project and focus your attention back on the stream. We're going to go into a quick web API, and don't worry, I will give you more than enough time to demo your projects. This is going to be a quick little discussion. So we're going to search for Spotify web API documentation. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll stop this and I'll share my screen. Okay. Perfect. So now we're going to search up Spotify. So this is how easy it is. I'm showing you. You don't need a specific link. You can just search up what you want. You search up web documentation. The first link should be this, which is perfect. Spotify's web AI documentation. Joro says, I have one question. You can't commit your API key publicly, right? So how to deploy. So you should add in your API key. Yes, you shouldn't commit it publicly because people can use it. There's definitely like ways to get around that, more complex coding, but you are just going to have to do that for right now and hope no one goes into your code and steals your API key. In the future, typically for hackathons and things like that, people will either hide their API key or put it in an encryption. But you're okay with doing that for now. Nobody's going to go through your code and steal your API key from omdb.api. It's usually starts becoming a problem for more complex tools like Gemini. So no worries. Yeah, you can definitely try different methods. Just for this workshop, just go ahead and deploy it just because like this is a super beginner, so don't worry about that. Nobody's going to copy your API key. So definitely feel free to do any other methods that you'd like. But if you just want to get a running project, just go ahead and deploy it. No worries at all. So going back to the web API, also, yeah, y'all can see that. Yes, okay, perfect. So this is Spotify's official web developer portal. So you can see everything here, how to connect to the API, how to search for songs and albums, how to read profiles, and things like that. So we're going to navigate to this section, which is the references section. Hopefully it looks the same on your computer. And we have API reference here. You can see a list of all these different endpoints. So you can think of these endpoints like albums, artists, audiobooks, like different tools in the toolbox. Each of these endpoints lets you do something different. For this demo specifically, we're going to be using the straightforward one, which is the search endpoint. This lets us search Spotify's catalog using different parameters like artist name, song title, album title, things like that. So we're actually going to go ahead and, yes, thank you for that link, Joro. That is exactly what you need. If y'all are not able to get that link, definitely use that link that Joro has put for us. You should be able to get it if you just search up Spotify web API documentation. But if you're not able to, definitely make sure you check that link. And yes, if any of y'all are interested, Wei is correct. You would create your own REST API backend that connects to a third-party API. For example, what we used, OmDB API, and use .env to control that environment variable. So a lot of very complex terms, which is kind of why I didn't cover it in this session. But definitely there are methods to hide your API key so that if you're at a hackathon or working on a personal project and you use an API key, you don't expose it. So that's exactly what you would do. Lots of documentation online if you need some help finding that as well. So yeah, there's a couple of tools that y'all can use if you want to end up covering your API keys. So going back to documentation, we are going to open up that search endpoint. We're going to click on it. And you'll see a bunch of different details here. You'll see like endpoint, you'll see your parameters. So just to explain a little bit, this is kind of your GET request for your endpoint, what it's going to get for your search. And these are the parameters that you need. Q is your search item, like for example, like different artists. So like a very popular artist now is like Sabrina Carpenter, for example. So that would be your search term. And then you have your type, which is exactly what type of item you're looking for. And that's what Spotify tells you. So you have like audiobook, episode, show, artist, things like that. You can also include additional parameters like the ones listed here. If you use limit, that means you're limiting the number of results. Market means that you can filter the results by region. And offset means to offset the results by space specifically. So these docs will show you how, like, what a specific JSON response looks like, so you can know what data you're going to get and how to access that within your code. So if you actually want to try it, you can definitely go ahead and try it out. So I'm going to put a limit for just like 2 responses. I just want a quick little limit. Could y'all give me a artist playlist track show episode audiobook? So give me an artist and I will search that artist. Give me your favorite artist. Give me an artist you've been listening to recently, somebody that you like. And if y'all are busy on your specific project, don't worry about it. I can submit my own artist. But anything like artist, song, album title, anything works. So feel free to put that in the chat. I'll be waiting for like maybe a minute. And if nobody comes up with a response, totally no worries. I will come up with my own. I've got a lot of favorite artists. But let me know any songs, albums, artists, and then you can see like the queries that would come, exactly what Spotify does. Thank you, Flying Girl, Taylor Swift. Okay, let's go ahead and put in Taylor Swift, very popular artist. We're gonna put artist. We're only searching for the artist. Let's try it and see. Oh, okay. I don't know why I did that. Last time it just let me go ahead and do it. I think it might make me log in. Okay, well, I can't log in right now because I'm not going to expose my login, but y'all can log in at any time and submit to your and see what it does. Actually, let me see. I want to log in and I want to show you all this. So let me see if I can do it without doxing myself really quick. Let me see if I can open this up on Safari, actually, because everything is logged in on Safari. Sorry for technical issues, guys. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't exposing any of my logins. Oh, I think it was working because I was logged in on my Safari before. Why is it not working? Okay. Let me try reloading. But y'all can also try this. This is just a quick way to get any of your responses and see what the artist query result will give you. I'm gonna try it one more time and see if it works, but if not, just for time's sake, I might just let it be. Or actually, I think it did end up doing that. Okay, I think it's having problems, but that's okay. I tried this out earlier and it worked, so maybe it's working for y'all. But here, I hear a couple of song recs, so we can take a quick pivot into that too. Taylor Swift is a good artist. Ooh, Bruno Mars is definitely great. Ooh, what are my favorites? To be determined. I'm still determining my favorites. Chat and Song by Bridge Music. Ooh, I've never heard that one. That one sounds good. And I don't know what that is either. That sounds really good. These songs sound like very, very fun, good song titles, very popular artists for some of these, but hopefully y'all are able to get that working. It wasn't working for me, but I want to go ahead and move on to the demo. But that's just a quick way that y'all can get a JSON response directly in the browser for your response sample. So this is going to show you the raw data that Spotify sends back. It's exactly what your code would receive if you made this request using either Fetch or Postman. If you're logged into your Spotify account, definitely go ahead and try that. I'm not logged in and I don't want to because it's going to take me through like so many rounds of authentication. So don't worry about that. But hopefully it's working for y'all. And now just like for next steps in general, y'all can do a lot of different things. So like we were talking about, you can hide your API using the .env variable, error handling. You can build your own APIs using backend technology. And there's a lot of different things you can do using this knowledge that you have, this base level knowledge of APIs. And you can go ahead and do these different things. This is just supposed to be like an intro to get your interest peaked within APIs, within learning how to do an API. But definitely feel free to try different tools like this, and explore some different aspects of APIs. And also, it's very important to, find your passion projects and something that you're specifically super excited about with APIs. And that is usually what gets you really involved in a technology. Like, I really love streaming. That's my passion project, like education. And I love teaching people about things that I know. So that's kind of my passion project. That's what I do. And that's how I get to learn more about technology. I learn more about it and then I teach more people about it. So definitely find your passion project super interesting for that. And now for the part that y'all have been waiting for. Definitely, this is a perfect time for Q&A. If y'all have any questions, ask me anything. But I want to see some of your projects. So if you could go ahead and grab that URL link from your GitHub pages and post it and send it to me in your YouTube comments or Twitch comments, send that to me. I would love to see it. And I'll screen share your project and I'll show everybody that your project works and you're a master coder and a master developer. So if you need any quick quick reference, quick refresh about how to get that link, let me show you really quick. Let me remove this slideshow. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go back to Safari. We're going to go into Movie Finder and just copy this URL. If that's not working, you can also just copy the URL from your GitHub pages. So quick refresher about how to do that. Yay, perfect. Flying Girl sent theirs. I'm actually realizing I can't copy that. I'm going to type it out and then copy it. Perfect. Thank you for sending your demo. Let's try that. Glad to see that it worked for you. Oh, it's not GitHub, it's GitHub. Movies.api. Yes, definitely make sure that if any of y'all have if you demoed it, I would love to see your projects. Please send them to me. I'd love to demo them and show them out for everybody to see. So we're looking at Flying Girl right now. Let me actually, unless you want to give me your favorite movie, Flying Girl, let me go scroll up to see if you said anything earlier. Oh yeah, Last of Us. Okay, Flying Girl would like Last of Us. Yay! Okay, wow. Okay, so they've implemented some more functionality. So we're able to see the movie, the genre, the director, actors, and the IMDb rating with a plot. Wow, this is great. I just gave y'all like a super basic bare bones project, but Flying Girl has implemented some more functionality. So this is super cool. If you could tell us how you were able to do it and inform your other stream members, that would be great. Wei says great job. So definitely great job, Flying Girl. Here, I'll pin the comments so you can see the praise coming in for your project. Aryan says super cool. Yeah, it's very cool. You can see a lot of the film posters to the left, and you can actually see the poster box highlighted. Very fun. A shadow. This is great. Yeah, you've got the little star emoji. I love this. This is amazing. Let me know if any of y'all have any other projects that you would like to demo. I would love to demo them. And y'all can get this amazing praise from your fellow MLH community members. Musheng says awesome as well. Flying Girl says, I just console logged the response and know I had to do it. Yes, I completely get it. These are super cool edits. Totally makes sense that you went ahead and did all of this. This is great. And yeah, this is definitely something y'all can do too if you coded the basic starter code that I gave you. And you want to add some more functionality, definitely feel free. You can add functionality at any point for any resource. You can add these different fun little box shadows that we have, the plot. Very cool. So if any of y'all ever feel interested in watching The Last of Us, now you know after a global pandemic destroys civilization, a survivor takes charge of a girl that may be humanity's last hope. So fun little descriptions of how the movies are, what the plot is. So this is great. This is super fun. So now if Google is not giving you the responses that you want, and Google's, throwing temper tantrums and not giving you the information that you need, definitely make sure that you are going through this movie search project, because now you can get all your movies in one spot. And 1000% shouting out what Wei said, make sure you submit to that link. I will paste that in the chat for y'all. Super duper important. If you made a demo, if you made a project, if you followed along and submitted it through GitHub pages, definitely make sure you submit it at that link. We are going through a bunch of different projects, and we are hoping to demo a couple of projects from our MLH community members. So Flying Girl, make sure you submit there, and you can mention that you made one of these projects at the stream. That's super cool. That's exactly what we want y'all to do. So that was super cool. That is basically the end of the stream. I'm always open for any questions if y'all have that. But while I still have you here, I would really, really appreciate if y'all could fill out our feedback link. It's very important to us to get feedback and make sure that these streams are the best that they can be. So I will paste that there. You can go ahead and click out that link as well. So if y'all enjoyed this stream, enjoyed any other streams, or just have any feedback like, oh, I wish you went a little bit slower, a little bit faster, this was great. Yeah, Wade gave like the actual HTTPS link. That's perfect. So make sure y'all fill out that feedback link, preferably now, but if you don't have time, you can also do it later. That would be super great, just so that we can get any feedback from y'all. Positive, negative, neutral, everything is appreciated so that we can make this even more impactful. Hopefully y'all will use APIs more in your future. I hope this workshop kind of piqued your interest, and you can work a little bit more on that. Flying Girl said, do we need to submit the project that we made today? You can. You don't have to. The demo is for any projects that you make at Global Hack Week, or just in general if you just want to demo these projects. So feel free to submit whatever you would like. If you submit this one, it's just like you made it during Global Hack Week. That's so much. That's really cool. That means that Global Hack Week is making a positive impact, so you're able to make something by yourself. But you don't have to. You can submit whatever you would like. But yeah, we're reaching the very close end of our stream. So thank y'all so much for paying attention, for engaging with me, and for honestly being like a really great audience. I loved the engagement, loved the jokes from all of y'all, and I loved y'all deploying your code. So if you have any feedback, make sure you check out that feedback link. Thank you so much for your attention. I loved streaming for y'all today. And I'm hearing from Joro, you got to customize yours, but yay, it's working perfect. If you want to go ahead and drop your link to your demo in the chat, feel free to do so. I'd love to demo your project. No worries if you haven't customized it. All that matters is that it's working. So if you would like to give me the link for your project, I would love to demo that. And yeah, make sure that you give that if you would like to. No pressure though, but really, really glad to hear that it's working. Wei mentioned that they're curious about what the next stream is. Perfect. So the next stream is actually going to be at 2 p.m. I think it's Central Time. Let me double check. But that's going to be with Ryan Lalu. It's going to be our Figma workshop. So Ryan's going to be talking a little bit more about Figma and explaining to us what Figma is. It's going to be at 2 p.m. Central. Yes, thank you, Flying Girl, for that amazing link. That's what y'all can check out if you want to see the schedule. Joro, totally get that it's being built. No worries. Make sure you submit it to that demo link if you want somebody else to see your project and potentially demo it at Global Hack Week. And yay, super glad to hear that this was your first live session. Oh my God, I am so honored to be the first live session that you attended. This is great. I'm glad you found some value. Glad that your demo worked out super cool. Definitely submit it at that link. Very glad. Yeah, make sure y'all check out the schedule. go to Ryan's stream. It's going to be really fun. It's at 2 p.m. Central, so it's actually happening right now. So yeah, I'm going to hop off so that Ryan can start streaming his new stream. So thank y'all so much for paying attention and for being an amazing audience. Hopefully you got a lot of value from this content, and make sure you head over to Ryan's stream just and Ryan will start streaming soon. So thank y'all. Bye.